So let me tell you my life. And one part of my life begins very nicely. It turns to be absolutely evil. But would you believe it? Countries of Europe, not just one, number of countries, actually turn against me. I should feel honored, I suppose. No, they want to destroy me. And fortunately, they didn't manage to do that, and life turned out to be pretty good. So let me tell you what happened. I was born in 1929 in a country called Czechoslovakia. Life is beautiful. I begin school. I'm 6 years old, first grade. I look around my classroom with 30 other kids, and as I scan the classroom, I suddenly stop at one point, and the reason for that is because suddenly in my class sits the most gorgeous girl that I've ever seen in my life. And of course, you're 6 years old and an expert in these kinds of things. The objective is to get to know her. And I do. We become friends, we do homework together, I carry her books, at times we even hold hands. I am Orthodox Jew, she is Russian Orthodox. But nobody cares. Why? Because we're two kids doing homework and having a good time. I tell you this to understand that there was integration. Because I lived in a city where 1/3 of the population is Jewish, the other, more than a third, maybe 3/4 or so, are Catholics, and there are some Russian Orthodox and some Reform/evangelicals. Living in relative peace and harmony. And I go to school, I play soccer, I have a girlfriend, things are beautiful. It's 1935, 1936, and time goes on, and I'm living in a beautiful house with my parents and grandparents, which has its own advantages, and not just with parents, but because grandparents are much easier to manipulate than parents, as we all know, and having them right then and there was always a wonderful thing. Besides, my grandfather was very good at making things, and therefore every project in school, he got an A. And so I never told the teacher about that. And so I lived in this really wonderful bubble. In a nice house, things are beautiful. That's 1935 and 1936 and 1937. And suddenly, out of nowhere, things are happening around me meaning 1,000 miles away. In a place called Germany, they didn't like things that happened in the early 20th century or late 19th century. Some people became very prejudiced and hateful against the Jews, and they wrote articles. And suddenly it bubbles up. World War I comes along, Germany loses the war, they have to blame somebody, so you have to pick on somebody, right? We know that, when you play a game, a soccer game, right? You have 11 people on the team, but if you lose a game, it's the fault of the goalie, right? 10 other people didn't do their job, keeping the ball away. And so you blame the goalie. Lo and behold, along comes World War I, Germany loses the war together with Austro-Hungary and a whole bunch of other people, and they're not happy about it, and so they're blaming somebody. They blame the Jews, why not? I mean, there are not that many of them around, and Jews have been blamed for every ill under the sun in the last 2,500 years to be exact. Long story why. If we have another 2 or 3 or 4 sessions, we can talk about that. But maybe next year we'll talk about anti-Semitism over the ages. And so they make up stories about Jews, which means me. I'm evil. I am using Christian children's blood to bake matzah. You know what matzah is? That stuff which tastes like cardboard. And they make up a story in the 13th, 12th century, or 12th century, And it continues to be the case, and they begin to pick on the Jews in Germany. And my country is right next to Germany. Czechoslovakia butts up against Germany. And Germany wants a piece of Czechoslovakia, and suddenly, poof, it's 1939 spring, with all the agreements and all the signatures on beautiful pieces of paper. Germany totally and completely destroys the idea of Czechoslovakia and takes pieces of it. One piece for itself, which is now the Czech Republic, totally taken over by Germany. The eastern part taken over by Hungary, and in the middle of the whole thing is a country called Slovakia where I live, and this country has an election. You know, you have a new country, like when America came to be, the United States, they put together a bunch of people and they had a constitutional convention to form a country. And this new country called Slovakia elects a government, the kind that they like. Why? Because they are all, I would say, the majority of the people hate Jews. For no particular reason, just hate them. And so, how do I know that? Very easy. Because the first set of laws they pass has to do with the fact that I, Irving Roth, who am Jewish, am not allowed to go into the park. Again, because I would contaminate the park. I'm not allowed to go to the beach. Oh, I'm not allowed to have any luxuries. What's a luxury? Well, Slovakia is a cold place, even colder than New York. So I have a sheepskin jacket. You know what that is? Like Uggs. Yeah. See, people, when I speak to people in Florida, what's a sheepskin jacket? What are Uggs?
Oh, they wear it when it's 50.
What's that?
They wear them when they're 50 degrees when it's raining.
Right. But I'm not allowed to have it because they're luxury, and therefore I have to take my jacket. Now imagine you got a pair of Uggs for Christmas this last Christmas, right? Anybody did? And you walk into class on the 2nd of January, and the strange thing, as you walk into the lobby, there's a guy in uniform you never saw before. He says, "Hey, blondie, take those shoes off." He says, "What do you mean take the shoes off? You're blonde. We don't allow blondes to have anything as luxurious as Uggs." I suppose you would be upset. So was I. I can't wear it. I have to deliver it to the police department. I don't allow. We have a radio. You've heard of those things. Can't have a radio. You can't have any gold jewelry. And if you don't hand it in, police come and turn the house upside down. And if they find jewelry, not only do they take the jewelry away, they fine you for not turning it in. They're picking on me. One day my girlfriend won't talk to me because I'm a Jew, because her father told her not to be friendly. Socially not acceptable to be friends with a Jew. And so my girlfriend of many years, who I held hands with, no longer talks to me. In spite of the fact that year I bought her a present for Valentine's Day. And very soon I am thrown out of school because I'm a Jew. Every Jewish teacher in the whole country is fired. It's all that is taking place. Jewish people are no longer allowed to practice law. All Jewish, if there was a Jewish judge, he was thrown out altogether because he's an employee of the government. And then one day, we hear a rumor that Jews will no longer be allowed to own a business. Imagine you have an electronics store, You built it from scratch, or you inherited it, doesn't matter. But you're a Jew. She is not. She can come to your store and throw you out. My father had a business, a lumber business. He produced railroad ties by the tens of thousands. He's a Jew. And so how am I going to live? Also, my father conceives of the idea, what if I get one of my Christian friends and borrow his name? And say, hey, Albert, his name was Albert Melesnik, Christian friend. He said, Albert, would it be okay if I change the name of my company to your name? And this way, now it's a Christian company. And nobody can take it away. Of course, I'll give you a token of my appreciation, maybe $1,000 a month for just using your name. But it says, Joe, we've been friends for years. Of course. And so, we circumvent the problem. My father is still running the business, shipping railroad ties, everything is wonderful financially. And one day, Apple comes to see my father. And the conversation looks like this. Joe, how are things? Good. How's business? Great, says my father to him. I really appreciate what you're doing. He says, well, I've been thinking about that a little bit, but as you see, my name is on the marquee there, right? My name is on all the paperwork. So in effect, this business is mine, right, Joe? Well, yes, legally, we said that. Well, I decided that because my name is there, it's mine. And so I got a proposition. You continue running my business. I'm going to employ you as a manager, but all the profits are mine. I call that transformation. From a nice guy, Albert went to church every Sunday. He believed in God and the Ten Commandments. That doesn't apply to Jews, you see. And in his mind, the propaganda works. So now my father is an employee in his own business, which was wonderful in a way because he still got paid. He could have been thrown out because most Jews were thrown out of the businesses. I mean, you find that many of the businesses, the way it worked out is, let's say there was a guy who owned a drugstore. He was a Jew. He had a guy working for him. So the guy working for him threw the druggist out and took away the business from him. That was the more common. All this is going on. So I see it as a persecution of me, very personal. All this is going on, and meanwhile, as you know, the war is going on. I got a present from the German government for my 10th birthday. My birthday is the 2nd of September. And on the 3rd of September of 1939, World War II began. That's what their present to me. They invade Poland. Poland has an army. It's not exactly a new fancy modern army. They have horses pulling guns. Whereas Germany has tanks with large guns. So you can imagine how long it takes. Germany totally devastates the Polish army approximately 4 weeks. So now you have this whole country, and so Germany says, hey, we're going to take a good part of it. And the very eastern part, we have a bunch of friends. Who are they? They're the Soviet Union. You know, Stalin, remember him? So why don't we talk to Stalin, let him take part over. So part of Poland becomes Russia, a small part, and the large part becomes Germany. And we will now pick on the Poles and the Jews. The Poles They're stupid. You know the Polish jokes? They actually believed it. What the Polish? They had no culture. The fact that they have museums, and some of the stuff was good stuff. They don't need it. We'll take it. Bring it to Germany. Loot it. The Jews is a different story. Then we're going to take care of that good. And they began by simply picking on the Jews. They came in the September, the war starts. By the end of, by the middle of October, the war is over. They begin taking over. And by the 1940, a few months later, they say, you know what, the Jews are living all over Poland. 10% of the population of Poland is Jewish. You don't want them to live every place. You want to put them into a small area. Imagine there's a city called Warsaw. It has 300 and some odd thousand Jews living there. Out of the total population of about 1 million. 1/3 of the population of Warsaw is Jewish. And they're living every place. Yes, they're not going to do that. What we're going to do is take all the Jews from all over Warsaw and put them into a small piece, like 2%. I dare say most of you have your own rooms, right? Imagine for a moment that all the blondes are no longer allowed to live any place in Mineola except in the one block. And so all the blonde people in Mineola now are shoved into one block. But there are only 17 houses there. There are 300 people maybe. What are you going to do? Well, they shove them into there. In Warsaw, the area, small area called the ghetto, by the way, the worst part of the city, the slums of the city, that's where the Jews were pushed. Sometimes you have 3 families living in a room. And they put a fence around the area, a stone wall, 10 feet high, and on top of the thing, it was like this thick, with rocks all put together into a huge fence, and on top of it they poured concrete, and into the concrete they put shards of glass. You know why? Because if you actually would climb up some other 10 feet, what would you hit? Glass! And cut yourself to pieces. To discourage anybody trying to escape. And this is what's going on, and of course, Poland takes a month, Holland takes about 3 days, and Germany and Italy and Hungary and Bulgaria are together, all Nazi countries, and they say, hey, we like this. Well, France, we should take over France, to part of it at least. So part of the France gets taken over by Germany, and the other piece they say, well, those are the good guys, like us, Nazis. They form a government called the Free French or something. Nazi government. And they do a similar thing in other places. There's a place called Norway. Anybody been to Norway? It's way up there. And they got a Norwegian guy to run the place, like a Nazi government. You may have heard the word before. Ever hear of something, the word called Quisling? Anybody heard that word before? No. Quisling is a traitor. And that's who he was. And so every place they go, they persecute the Jews. And the Jews are persecuted every place. And then they decide to attack the Soviet Union, and suddenly, poof, the Jews are there. And now they begin to kill Jews. They say, we've been picking them, let's kill them. And that's what they do. Thousands, tens of, hundreds of thousands of Jews are murdered by ordinary people in the Soviet Union. It's too slow, so they decide to have a conference and they create something called death camps. Death camps are where people are murdered, right? And Smart people put this death camps together, so we have gas chambers. So you take the Jews from all over Europe, bring them to these death camps, you murder them by gas, and now the problem is you're going to have bodies by the millions. So you burn them in the crematorium and they're gone. And this goes on. Day after day, week after week, month after month. And in my country called Slovakia, the Jews are taken away in 1942, gone, most of them. I am left there. Why? Because my father is still running Albert's business in Albert's Lindsay, temporarily. At one point, we have to leave. Why? Because we know we're in trouble. So we leave. Where do you go? Originally, we wanted to come to America, but America wouldn't let us in. And so we go to another country called Hungary. It's a strange country. It persecutes Jews in many ways, but it doesn't want to kill them yet. When they win the war, they're going to kill them. And so Hungary becomes a place you can hide. You can be as a Jew. They took all the men and put them into a slave labor force, and the families are left at home. But in 1944, spring, they said, okay, time to get rid of the Jews. And suddenly, I'm living in a small village in Hungary. My parents are in Budapest, the capital. And I wind up in a cattle car. You know what that is? It's a box. It's a maroon box on wheels. It chucks along the tracks. There's nothing in there. Just a box. And in the box are 100 people. The size of it is less than half this room. There are no bathrooms, no running water, no windows. It's summertime, it's hot. The train begins to move. One day, second day, third day. Imagine being locked in the room, men, women, and children, with enough room to stand for 3 days, with no bathrooms. You can't even imagine what it's like. And then after 3 days, the train stops. They open up the doors, I jump off the train, and there are chimneys and flames coming out of, about 100, maybe 200, maybe 500 yards away. 4 of them. Big buildings, flames coming out. And the whole train full of people, 4,000 of us, get off the train and we're separated. 300 this way, 3,700 this way. Those people going in one direction are told to go downstairs, men and women are separated, because they're going to take a shower. But it's not a shower at all. What it is a gas chamber. Murdered. My grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, murdered. I am not. Why? Because I'm as tall as I am now, and I could work. And so I am tattooed on my arm to make sure I understand I'm not a person. I've been branded like a cow or a horse. They own me, and they ship me off to work. I wind up working, draining swamps and plowing fields. Hard work from early morning to late at night on a very minimal diet of some liquid in the morning, usually black and hot. At noon I get some soup, and at night some couple of slices of bread. I'm that kind of guy. You too would be very hungry. I'm working from early morning to late at night. You'd be tired. But sometimes they would have something called selections. Now imagine the moment. You worked all day long, and at night you come back to your barracks normally, and you get washed up, you get a piece of bread, you eat some of it, you go to sleep. But some nights, that's not what happens at all. You come back, and they march you directly to a place that are showers. Wonderful, right? After a whole day working in the mud, except for one small detail. As you're walking into the shower, the bar or soap, a man stands there, and he's a doctor. He's in uniform, looks at you for an instant of time, and says nothing to you, Except for the fact he looks at you, and then sometimes he writes down the number. That's death. Why, because next morning, that number, and you having the number, you are put into a truck and take to the gas station. Because you were too skinny, or he didn't like your face, or you walked bent over. You never knew. Tonight when we come back, are they going to march us to take a shower? And will there be a selection? I said, well, my brother said that. And time goes on. Once, twice, 3 times. Then winter comes along. By the middle of January of 1945, the Russian army is 50 miles away. The American army is already in Germany. Germany and Hungary and Italy is going to lose the war. And I'm still alive. And one day, there's a death march. You know what it means? You march. If you slow down, they shoot you. By the 3rd day, you marched along, and all you could see on both sides of the room, the road, rather, there are bodies with a little red stuff around them, because it's cold and snowy in the snow. Dead. Thousands of people were shot on the way. My brother and I keep marching, and finally we wind up in a new place, in the middle of Germany, called Buchenwald. Buchenwald was a concentration camp built in 1937 for about 5,000 people. Now, by the time I arrived there, there's 60,000 people. And the facilities are more or less the same. And the amount of food that is allotted per day is about the same. And therefore, if you're lucky, you get a boiled potato every 3rd day. You know what happens when you eat like that? It's a diet. You lose a lot of weight. After a while, you become a skeleton. So I am losing weight. One day my brother is taken away, and I'm alone. Imagine being 15 years old. I'm in this camp on the diet of boiled potato once in a while. Once in a blue moon, we'll get some soup. Usually water. What's going to do? The cities of Germany are being bombed. And in fact, this one day, they start death marches again. And I keep hiding, and I hide under a building, and the guard comes along with a dog and finds me. And marches me out to the gate, and there I am. It's the 10th of April. I'm standing with 10,000 other Jews. The guards begin to form, ready to march us out on a death march. The siren goes off, and they wait. And the area lasted all day long. And I survived another day. Next morning, the guards disappear. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 American soldiers walked into our barracks. They looked at us. We were 250 kids or so in this barracks. With some famous ones. One of them you may have heard of. Elie Wiesel. You've heard of Elie Wiesel? You haven't, you probably will eventually. And became a famous writer, got the Nobel Prize. And suddenly we're liberated. Nobody wants to kill us. They keep feeding us. Eventually, we gain some weight, we feel better, the war is over. What do? I decided the only reasonable thing to do, I'm alone, I'm 15 years old. Maybe somebody in my family survived, so I wind up going back to the village from where I was taken. I figured that's where they're, if anybody's alive, that's where they're going to congregate. I get there, first person I see, I ask him, anybody in your family survived? Yeah. I say, where? He points to a house, I run over to the house, I open up the door, and there sitting is my mother. I say, hi, Mom. Cool. My mother looked up and thanked me. I was sure. My parents survived. I told you they were in Budapest. before the Jews of Budapest are being taken away by train or marched on a death march or shot on the street, which is the favorite thing to do, shoot Jews on the street and dump them into the water. My father doesn't wake up in the morning. He's breathing, but that's it. Take him to the hospital. Doctor examines him. Says, my mother is told that he's going to die momentarily, maybe a day or two, because he has typhus, very contagious and very deadly. The night nurse decides she's going to try and bring him back to life. A Christian woman. She's, like doctors think they know everything, but they're not God. Although some of them may think so. And this lady decides to bring my father back to life. Does everything possible for him to keep him breathing, well, with oxygen helping out, keep eating with an IV. And a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, and one night, rather, my father says something. She listens. He says very clearly, how long have I been asleep? Comes out of a coma. It's fine. He's being discharged from the hospital. He needs a place to hide, like my mother does, because by this time the Jews of Budapest are being shipped off. And if they don't have any trains, they march them on a death march. If they don't feel like doing that, they just shoot him. So they need a place to hide. This wonderful Christian woman lives in a one-bedroom apartment with her daughter, who is married, who has a husband. He is in the Hungarian Nazi army, of course. So he's not at home. And she has a child in a one-bedroom apartment. She tells my parents, I'll leave the door open, sneak in, make sure nobody sees you, and fix up a hiding place inside, and hopefully you're going to be found if the police come. And lo and behold, police come. They don't find them. Once, twice, 5 times. One night there's a knock on the door, into the hiding place the door. Who comes home for 3 days? The husband. The Nazi soldier comes home for 3 days. Can't hide him for 3 days. So the wife decides to explain to the husband about these 2 people in this small little apartment. Who are they? Well, she sort of makes up a story. She says, actually, they're very distant relatives who had to flee, and they're hiding and not just living. And you mustn't tell anybody because if you do, and anybody finds out, they'll have to tell the police. And once the police knows there is somebody hiding here, they will come and tear the place apart and find them and kill them. And if you want to go to bed with me tonight, you'll keep your big mouth shut. And so this wonderful Nazi soldier never betrays my parents. He doesn't have a soul. And my parents will die. Somebody was willing to help. That is the first and most important part of the story. Someone was willing to help. Guess what? Today there are people who want to kill other people. There are people who want to hurt other people. I even heard there are rumors that even in school sometimes there are people called bullies. Not here, of course. Never was. What are you supposed to do? If somebody tall,
What do you do if you see
strong,
him? What do you do?
goes over and tries to beat her up, you better stop him, right? That's what we're supposed to do. Protect each other, right? So, my first request to you is, you see a bully who is about to pick on her, you better do something. Because you can always do something. Call 7 friends to beat the guy up. Or take him off. Drag him into the principal's office.
Or just say stop.
And he will stop. And it doesn't matter. If some clerk in the Department of Motor Vehicles is nasty to somebody because he can't speak English and you speak Spanish, and that's what they got, you help him out. Yeah, I know, you're third in line. So if he disappears, you're the next in line, right? No. You're supposed to be there for the person who's being picked on, bullied by anybody, any place, anytime in the world. When women are being raped in the Sudan, you're supposed to do something. You're supposed to know about it. Because they're not protected. Why? Because they have no water. They're sitting in the desert and they need to go for 2, 3, 4 miles to get water. What do? You figure out how to get them water without having to go anyplace. That's the first. The second thing, the story happened. There are people in the world who say this never happened. I made this up. I thought it's a pretty good story. If I could make it up, I would be a writer. Although I did write a book. Maybe some of you will read it.
They read it.
They read it. I'm not going to be here to tell you children the same story. I deputize you. You all become surrogate survivors. And you will tell it to your neighbors. Some of them may not even believe it today. And you tell it to your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Because we want to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody, any place, any time. You, my friends, have deputized you to the surrogate survivors. Tell the story. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Before we leave, a couple of questions. I asked you the same question this morning, but I know you were tattooed at Auschwitz.
Yes.
Did you ever think about taking it off or removing it?
No,
It is still there.
it's still there. It's here, it's on my arm. It's a piece of memorabilia, you might say.
And only Auschwitz got tattooed.
Yes.
So you know that the sea one is from that.
It's from Auschwitz. Auschwitz, the reason Auschwitz is so well known by some people, by a lot of people, is the fact that it was the worst, the biggest. 1.2 million people were murdered in Auschwitz by gas. There were actually 4 + 1 gas chambers. Every day, every 24-hour period, Auschwitz could bring 10 to 12,000 people, gas them, burn their bodies, all that's left is ashes.
Please excuse the interruption for the following announcements.
Before we
Attention
go,
all athletes,
I wanna
helping
get a
athletes,
picture of that,
applicants who
everybody.
schedule